Welcome to Bethlehem. So you came to hear the story about Jesus. Well, you came to the right place because I was there that night. It was about 33 years, right about now, when we had a very, very busy time in Bethlehem. You see, Caesar Augustus had asked us all to go to our native towns in order to be counted. It was chaos. We all were moving everywhere. Everyone was moving. But Bethlehem was particularly busy because, you see, the prophets, Isaiah and Jeremiah, and well, I can't remember them all, but they always said that the next Messiah was going to be born in Bethlehem. And so if you could in any way connect yourself to King David or Jesse, his father, or any of his 6 brothers, then you would come to Bethlehem to be born. So a lot of boys were born in Bethlehem. This one night, we were so busy, every place was full. This couple shows up at our door and says to my husband, "Do you have a place?" And he said, "No, I'm sorry, there's no room in the inn." I look out and I see that this is a young girl that's very pregnant. She's going to have this baby any time. I go to my husband, I go, "Oh, we have to let her off that donkey and let us put her in the stable. After all, we just fed the animals. Everything is clean and there's fresh hay." The man overheard me and he said that would be fine. He just wanted to give the girl a place to rest. So I took them some blankets and helped them get ready for the evening. And I noticed that they were very different. She was incredibly young and beautiful and so saint-like. I mean, there was something about her that was just so pure. And he was a very nice man, very kind. I let them be. I went back to the inn. Shortly thereafter, there was a knock on the door, and the man was standing there, and he told my husband, he says, "Can you help us? I think the baby is coming." Well, the midwife was out of town. So my husband looked at me because he knew I'd helped some babies be born. And I said, "Well, she's so young, I'm going to have to get some help." So I went down to the rabbi's house and asked his wife, could she help me? That we have a very young woman having a baby, and I think she's going to have some trouble. So we go to the women in the town and we get the things we need, and we go back to the stall where she is, and she's fine. She doesn't seem to be in much distress. She doesn't seem to be in much pain. But anyway, we continue to help her. And we tell her, "We need to ask your husband to go outside. He needs to be with the men by the fire." She says, "Oh, that's not my husband." Well, my friend and I, we looked at each other. We both then understood why she wasn't with her women folk to help her. She said, "Oh, no, no, no." She said, "This baby is from the Holy Spirit." My friend and I, we looked at each other and went, All girls think that their baby is from the Holy Spirit. We continued to help her. She said, "No. 9 months ago, the angel Gabriel came to me. I was terrified. He said, 'Do not be afraid, for you have been chosen, and you are going to have a baby, and you're going to name the baby Jesus.'" She said, "I believed it." Well, Joseph was very upset to find out that I was going to have a baby. But the angel came to him and told him, "No, it's right. She is going to have a baby, and the baby's name is Jesus." Well, I looked at my friend and we thought, all right, well, let's help this young girl with this baby. So she never had any problems. She didn't cry out. She just seemed to have such courage, but at the same time, such peace. We continued into the night talking with her. The contractions were coming slowly. And she told us this story about a relative of hers in Judea, in the hill country, whose husband is a rabbi, like my friend's husband. And she said that Gabriel came to see that husband. And the rabbi was also afraid. And Gabriel also said, don't be afraid. But that your wife Elizabeth is going to have a child. And Zechariah laughed. He said, that's not possible. She is well beyond her years to have a child. And the angel Gabriel said, you will not speak again. You will not talk until the baby's born, and you will name this baby John. Well, my friend grabbed me by my shoulder and pulled me outside. And she said, come outside. She said, all the rabbis know that story. They've all been talking about him and the fact that he met Gabriel and that Gabriel gave him these words, but that he couldn't speak. And that 6 months ago they had a baby and they named it John, and there's no one in the family named John. We both looked at each other, and my friend ran back to her husband, the rabbi, and said to him, I think that we have something happening, that maybe the Messiah is coming, something is happening. She came back and she told me that her husband, the rabbi, laughed at her and said, there's no way a king of Israel or the next Messiah is going to be born in a stable. And he went back to sleep. We continued on the night. Finally, the baby came, and it was a perfect baby. It was the most perfect baby. It was beautiful. It radiated. We had never seen anything like this baby. It just took our breath away. We sat there and we helped the mother clean the baby up, and she took swaddling clothes that we had provided and wrapped them and put the baby in the manger. And my friend and I left, and we said as we departed, we will talk about this day again. And we both agreed. I went back up into my room in the inn, and I looked outside, and there was this glow in this stall that it was too hard to describe. I knew they had some candles, but not that many. And I looked in, and I could see Joseph and Mary, and they were just huddled over this baby. It was magical. It was magical. After a while, I heard this noise, and I looked down, and I could see shepherds. Shepherds are coming through town. Shepherds never leave their flocks at night because of predators. And yet here they come. I called my husband, get up, I think these shepherds are coming here. And they passed right by the inn, and they went right out to the stable, and I looked out the window with my husband, and we were both mesmerized. These young shepherds just went into that stable and just kneeled by this baby. It was peaceful. It was quiet. It was hard to describe, but I still get chills when I try to remember it for other stories. It's very hard. They soon left. The next morning, I took out some tea and some bread so that they had something to eat. And I said, what was that bright light that was coming from this stable? And they said, there were angels here with us last night. Well, it was just too much for me. It was too much. They stayed in town. They stayed in town for 8 days until it was time to take the child to purification at the temple. And they took 2 small doves with them because they didn't have much money, and that's all that was required for their sacrifice. And then they hung around town a little bit longer, but then one day they suddenly disappeared, and we didn't see them again. And it would be 12 years before I saw them again. The young boy was in the temple, and he was talking to the rabbis and the Sanhedrin and the Pharisees, and they were all gathered around him because he knew so much about the prophets and the teachings of Moses, almost more than they did. But I saw Mary off to the side, and I went over to her and I said, Mary, do you remember me? And she said, oh yes, I'll never forget you. And I said, where did you go? All of a sudden, you left our town. And she said, well, 3 men from the east came, and they brought us beautiful gifts. They were magi, they were astrologers, and they had followed a star to Bethlehem. And they told us that Herod was going to be looking for us and told us to find a place to hide. So that very night, Joseph packed us up and took us to Egypt. And there we stayed until Herod passed. And then we moved back to Nazareth, where we've been living and raising Jesus. He's been learning his father's skills as a carpenter. I said, he seems to be very wise. All the rabbis, they love watching him and listening to him. She goes, yes, it's been very interesting. I don't see Mary very much anymore. I hear she stays up in the Galilean area. She's up there around Nazareth. That's where Jesus has been preaching. He's been preaching for the last 3 years, and thousands of people are following him. And he has these 12 men that follow him around. They are a ragtag bunch of people. They're not what you would think of as followers of a great rabbi, but they all seem to be having a good time and learning a lot, and I've heard great stories about them. They're all fishermen and tax collectors. But this year, I hope to see Mary. I heard that Jesus is coming to Jerusalem. He's coming in for Passover, and he's going to be with his men. And it's been 3 years, so his ministry has really grown, and so I hope to see Mary there. I hope to. Anyway, I have to get back to my work in the inn, but I do hope you enjoyed the story. And remember that it all happened in Bethlehem.